With these three taps of the court's gavel, I welcome you to your courthouse and thank you for coming from your home. For what is a very important moment for us to gather, glad hand a bit, to take on very serious topics. And within this year, of course, our focus is mental health and the co-occurring disorders of drug and alcohol addiction. I'm Judge Toothman, and I genuinely appreciate each of you coming and look forward to what you can add to the dialogue in our county that this court takes on each and every day in its various ways. For 167 years, this courtroom has been opened by the graceful three taps of a gavel. And to hear testimony that are significant issues of the day, and if they could, these walls would speak volumes regarding the trials and tribulations of our families. And though this old building may in places be bent, the character of the people of Greene County who we serve is still straight and strong. And as we gather on this beautiful fall evening with trick or treat and a Halloween parade at our doorstep, we cannot be spooked by the fake goblins of our day and must tackle the serious issues that are causing our problems. By greeting one another, we do come together again as a community dedicated to a better tomorrow, but not as a given and not as a birthright, and sometimes against insurmountable odds. Tonight, we come together again to face our mental health in recognition that it cannot and should not be ignored. Mental health matters. And where there is honesty in the community, there can be honesty in a family and honesty within the individual. And there should be no shame attached. Tonight, we will undoubtedly hear evidence that confronts us all very uncomfortably. But as we rally around the flag, let's be looking for a strategy to reveal itself that the lives lost to the alienation that I see every day regarding mental health matters and/or drug addiction and/or alcohol addiction will be honored in a way that provides us all with hope for our families and our future. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Our mental health matters. Steve Barrett. I welcome you and introduce you to Steve Barrett, who will be the Master of Ceremonies. For everyone, we are trying to keep the program at an hour and a half to maintain your attention and undivided. Thank you. Steve.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Barrett. I'm the managing editor for the Greene County Messenger. It is my honor and privilege to serve as your Master of Ceremonies and host for this evening. We have some wonderful speakers here tonight who are going to provide us with a lot of information. And we are also going to give the audience an opportunity after the speakers to engage in a question and answer session. So we definitely encourage questions to ask the panel, and that will be later on this evening after the speakers. At this time, I would like to ask Pastor Richard Berkey of Rolling Meadows Church of God to lead us with an invocation.
Father, once again, I would ask that you would grant us wisdom, Lord, as we face an epidemic. Father, I would ask that you would open our ears to hear, Lord, as you said in the scriptures, that we need to have hearing to have understanding. And Father, again tonight, I would ask that you would direct each and every conversation, Lord, that we would be able to lift you up first of all, and Father, that we would glean and become more knowledgeable as to what we can do. And Lord, I'll be sure to just thank you and give you glory for what you do this night. In Jesus' name, and amen.
Our first speaker this evening will be Dr. Michael Crabtree. Dr. Crabtree is a full professor of psychology at Washington and Jefferson College, where he has been employed for the past 44 years. In addition, he is a licensed psychologist practicing in the Washington County community for the last 35 years. His areas of expertise are forensic psychology, drug and alcohol abuse, and anxiety and stress. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Crabtree.
Well, thanks. I think it's more helpful. As the governor knows, I have trouble hearing in this courtroom, and he oftentimes has to ask me to repeat things when I'm here. I better turn the microphone on. That'll probably, is it on? 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 The green light's on, but
Red light.
Check one.
There you go.
okay. We're gonna, in just a second, we're gonna queue up a video that just was posted about the last 5 or 6 days. But before we do, I want to give just a short bit of history. I was down in this county, this is hard to say, 42 years ago, doing the very first survey on drug and alcohol use when we had a combined SCA between Washington and Greene County, and the administrator there was concerned about drug and alcohol use. I guess we can say 42 years later that the concern is still there, but now the gravity is much greater because the drugs that are being abused and used now are ones that have obviously a greater lethal force than I think what we saw back then. What we'll see here in just a second is a video that was posted from a writer from the New Yorker magazine. It could be any community in this country because this is not a problem obviously unique to Greene County, not unique to Washington County. It's everywhere. This happens to be a county in Ohio, but choose your county. It just depends upon some factors we'll talk about how serious the problem is. So let's see how well we do with this.
We got a call on the first day of my ride-alongs. It was on this very normal suburban street. When I exited the car and walked up, I could hear agonizing crying from down the street. When I approached, I kind of came across this really incredibly heartbreaking scene of a family mourning for their son who had just overdosed. It really was one of the harder photos I've ever taken. The family eventually reached out to me and invited me to the funeral. Felt really honored to be there. Everyone had a story to tell about personal addiction or knowing someone that's died from an overdose. It was incredibly emotional for everyone, especially Brian's older brother, Tim. They were two pieces of pot, biggest thieves. From what I understood, Tim and Brian used to use together, and I think Tim carried a burden of the responsibility for Brian's use. What's important to note about heroin is it completely eliminates pain, physical pain and emotional pain, and I think people that are prone to depression and traumatic events in their lives, that is an obvious place to turn to. When researching for the story, I had heard about a coroner's office in the city of Dayton. And the coroner there had basically been running out of room for bodies that were coming into the coroner's office. The morgue was at capacity with opioid overdoses. He's speaking very candidly about it. The more and more I researched, I realized that this county, Montgomery County in Ohio, had the highest overdose rate in the country per capita. That, to me at least, seemed like the place to go. we were on non-stop ride-alongs. We do 2 shifts. Some days only taking opioid calls. One of the more memorable calls was actually my last day. We got a call for an overdose in North Dayton. Young man must have been in his early 20s. It was almost like he was snoring, but his eyes were more or less kind of rolled back in his head. Just watched Dayton City Fire administer Narcan hit after Narcan hit. His mother was in the room, which was rare. I'd never really kind of seen family be allowed to be in the room when first responders are working on someone like that. And she was really stoic. I was really surprised. It was almost like she'd seen that before. One of the firefighters mentioned, we're close to our record, which is 14 hits. I guess their personal record in that fire department was 14 hits of Narcan in order to revive someone that's overdosing. By hit 11, he finally came to. Narcan is this really unbelievable miracle drug. It's not unlike a nasal spray. When someone is overdosing on an opiate, your breath slows to a halt. If the first responders can get to you before you fully flatline, so he administered Narcan, and that will reverse the effects of the overdose. One thing you need to understand with first responders is there will be times when they are administering Narcan in the morning, that person will recover, and those same officers will be responding to another call in the evening for the same person overdosing. I think there's a real wall they need to keep up in order to maintain this sort of matter-of-fact process in order for them to do their jobs efficiently. All the officers I rode with knew everybody by first name, knew their parents, knew their sisters. That was something to expect. I don't think law enforcement have a collective hypothesis as to why this is happening. And it'll really depend on who you're speaking to. If you're speaking to a deputy or a police officer who's kind of dealing with it at a street level, they would attribute it to generations of heroin users. Other officers and other people within law enforcement will hypothesize that it had a lot to do with doctors writing prescriptions for pain meds. What we're starting to see now with fentanyl and carfentanil is a far more concentrated form of heroin. It's a synthetic opiate that has hit the market, and this is advantageous for drug traffickers because it's far more condensed, it's far more powerful. They can sell a lot more of it. We all at some point have to have our wisdom teeth removed or go into surgery. Heroin and opioids, they're extremely powerful and extremely addictive drug that latches hold of you. The needle doesn't discriminate. It could really be any of us. It could really be any of us.
So what he says at the end, I think, is what we all have to remember, that it could be anybody. And when you start to either know family members or friends, or you read the obituary and you see people in their 20s or 30s that are dying, then you know it's just anybody, anywhere. But part of what we want to do tonight is to say, all right, are there things that we might move on, the things that we might be able to understand regarding those people who are most susceptible to the problem. So if you open up that second hypertext, Sandra. So every year the federal government surveys nationally, I think it's about 70,000 people, to collect information about what are the drugs most likely to be abused in our society. It's not a good news.
No.
Here for the technical people that maybe we can't cue it up here. Did you?
Wait, no, we can take out your...
No. But we'll have a backup plan,
There it is.
all right?
Here's your.
Oh, she got it, that's great. So we're going to scroll down on that, okay, to the first, keep going. And so here, there's the cover page of what the survey looks like. Couple more. Okay, here's the one we're going to look at. That it gives you the overall numbers of the problem across the United States. So keep in mind, if you're ever calculating numbers, we have a little over 300 million people in the United States, and you can then kind of extrapolate all the way to percentages here. Notice that if we're talking about substance use disorders, we have 7.5% of the population, okay? So Greene County is what, about 45,000? Is that about right?
37.
Okay, so someone can do the math quickly on their calculator. I can't do that one in my head. But a significant number of people are going to have problems with drugs, all right? And then 18.3% have problems with mental health. Now, I can do that number a little faster, but we're talking there probably in this county, probably somewhere around 8,000 people would have some kind of mental health problem. Now, the interesting area is just in between these two, which we're going to talk a little about, these so-called co-occurring disorders. But before we do, so we've got 7.5% or 20 million people in this country who have significant problems with substance abuse. Now, here's the long-time favorite, the middle one, alcohol. Yeah, that's been a problem ever since, right? That we've seen that people have trouble consuming alcohol. So 75% of the people of that group there have alcohol problems, and 37% drugs, and then 12% kind of overlap of both drugs and alcohol. And if we run over here, you can see that there's this many people in our country who have mental health problems, and 1 out of 4 of them have a serious mental health problem like schizophrenia or bipolar disease. The rest of them have less serious problems. But notice this is the group in here that, particularly when I was asked to speak, we want to talk about those people there that seem to be most vulnerable to the effects of drugs. We want to look a little bit about the factors related to why that's the case. But we'll move on. I'll tell you, move forward on that slide. Just a little bit about this one. This gives you a relatively the kind of drugs that people abuse. And here, this one obviously is going through a lot of community discussions about where it fits in, so we'll kind of ignore marijuana for a moment. And of course, these are our longtime favorites, are cocaine, hallucinogens, and methamphetamines. But wow, here is the group that we're talking about that has really grown in size. The number of people who have misuse of prescribed drugs. And so let's kind of catch the next. There we go. And this is a revealing slide, although a busy one. By the way, if you ever want these slides, I'll send them off to you. Just my email address is with the college. I'll be glad to send it to you. But look at this. We've got 11.8 million people with opiate misuse. So opiates are that categories of legal and illegal drugs. Only less than 10% are because of heroin use, right? Where does it all start? Over here with pain reliever misuse. And so you probably have read, at least I've seen 2 or 3 articles last week about how much responsibility the medical field, particularly pharmacological companies, have for using pain medications excessively in treating their patients. So that's the real important part there. I think, take a look at the next slide. The next one after that. I will just do one more, keep going. One more. And here, sobering thought. What I want you to pay attention to is this bar and this bar here. These are people between 18 and 25 who have serious thoughts about suicide 10 years ago. Between 18 and 25, serious thoughts about suicide last year. And so, man, young people are not able to handle life as well as, let's say, many of us who are older could have handled it at the same time. And you see the same thing with making a plan or attempted suicide. So we see an increase in the level of mental health problem. So we'll close that one out. And then I've got a couple of slides now from my main PowerPoint that we can go back to. Thanks a lot for that. So we'll go down to the third slide there and move on through some of the factors that we think would be helpful us to know. You may have heard today the President is about ready to declare this opiate problem as a public health issue. And that means that it's going to take a great deal more broad-based intervention to make a real difference in how it is that we can effectively respond to the problem. These are the most vulnerable parts of our population relative to drug problems. So when we talk about co-occurring disorders, we're talking about this intersection between one problem and drug and alcohol problems. This group, homeless, veteran, criminal justice system, veterans, mental health. I'm going to talk about three of these. I just would note and give credit to this county. I think that they've hired recently someone who's specializing in the criminal justice system, where we see a lot of people who come into the system there with substance abuse problems. But let's hit the next slide and catch the other three areas. People are homeless, and you may think, geez, we all have a place to go back to tonight, but homelessness is increasing dramatically. And so we find people who are homeless are those people who are all vulnerable relative to substance abuse, and these are the kind of needs that they have. They need to know how to fend for themselves in life, help to get a job, housing, integrated care with physical and mental health problems. I had to put a plug here for the City Mission. Since I'm on the board of the City Mission, we recently opened a store here, reopened a store here out on the east side of town. City Mission does a great job with this population in terms of helping to address those specific needs this group of people would have. And then veterans. I don't know how many people here are a veteran. How many veterans do we have? And so, first of all, thank you for your service, because we're close to Veterans Day, and that's a population you might know is also vulnerable, because the trauma they experience, particularly PTSD, housing. I spent about 3 years doing a research project for the Department of Defense looking at the specialized needs of the military. And you find that members of the National Guard and the Reserve particularly are vulnerable because they don't have that support group from the other military members. And our research indicated this is a group of people that's very stoic, kind of tough, not willing always all the time to get help, and their fear of being treated differently. Those all make them a vulnerable population. You sound like this is going to sound like a commercial announcement, but I have to say we're right in the middle of a building program for a shelter just for veterans with the City Mission in Washington. So if you have a homeless veteran particularly, that's a great resource for you to consider. And then mental health. That group also suffers from higher incidence of substance abuse problems. Well, why is that? Well, we're going to see in a couple of slides here that there's specialized needs that people who have mental health problems have that sometimes can't get met in the way that's healthy, and then that they oftentimes overuse medication in order to cover up symptoms. So 9 million people have drug and alcohol problems combined. The research says only 7% of the people in this population get help for both mental health and substance abuse. And so you have a number of good community programs here in Greene County. I'm aware of a lot of them. But for that group that has both mental health and substance use problems, you need a specialized program where you address both sets of needs. And look at this, only about 7% get help for both kinds of problems. 55% get no help at all, 23% are homeless, because these problems make it less likely that you can maintain a job and maintain a home. And 6 in 10 substance abusers have a mental health problem. This is the bi-directional issue. There's self-medication by people with mental health problems, many schizophrenics, many people with anxiety. They need something that's going to help to dampen some of the intervening problems that are created from those diagnoses. But the other problem is that overuse of drugs and alcohol can actually cause mental health problems. That's why you need a program for somebody with both of these difficulties that specifically addresses both sides of the equation. And so in the last couple of slides here, I just summarized some of what we know are mental health diagnoses that have an increased likelihood of having a substance abuse problem. And you may know somebody who's depressed, and they're likely to want to be drinking too much alcohol or using depressive medications or sometimes narcotic drugs. People who have anxiety disorders like panic attack or social anxiety similarly overuse Xanax, Ativan, other benzodiazepines. People with post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, dementia, eating disorders, attention deficit disorder, and conduct and antisocial personality disorders. And then we looked at this side of the equations, that we find that substances that typically are abused by people who have mental health problems are first and foremost alcohol, but then opiates, stimulants like cocaine and Ritalin, and marijuana. Now, that was quick, but that's only because we went a lot of time for our other speakers here, and I'd be glad later on to answer any questions if they come up, but I'll turn the microphone over to our next speaker or to our MC, whoever's coming up next to hand it to.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Morris Harper. Dr. Harper graduated from Harvard Medical School. He has been practicing medicine for many years with a focus on addiction medicine and HIV/AIDS specialist. Dr. Harper has led many addiction support groups and serves on multiple boards bringing awareness to opioid addiction. He is a member of numerous professional organizations ranging from correctional care, addiction, telemedicine, and international physicians. Dr. Harper is Vice President of Comprehensive Telehealth Solutions and currently sits as Chairman of the Community Foundation of Greene County. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Morris Harper.
First of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight. Following Dr. Crabtree, he said he was down for 44 years. I've not been in Greene County that long, but I have been practicing medicine in Greene County soon to be 23 years. And I'm quite familiar with the county. Some of you I know personally. So it's good to be here tonight. We do have an epidemic in our county, and we're happy that we now have treatment facilities in the county. Let me just say a little bit about myself in addition. I'm talking tonight about treatment methods for opiate addiction and particularly the role of therapy as a component of that. And let me say that I've been doing this for a number of years. I treat all of those different therapies. I treat with methadone, I treat with Suboxone. I am licensed to follow 275 patients on Suboxone. That's the highest any doctor in the country can follow in terms of Suboxone treatment. I also treat patients with Vivitrol. So let me first of all say that there is no one method of treatment for every patient. And I strongly believe that each of these methods, whether we're talking about methadone, we're talking about Suboxone, Subutex, or Vivitrol, those medications are stopgaps. Those are medications that patients should not be on the rest of their lives. Those are medications that allow the patient to have a time out. They no longer have to chase the drug, heroin, and some of the other opioids, and etc. The real answer, I believe, to this is to be able to intervene in people's lives, to be able to help people learn how to change and make different choices, better choices, how to learn to deal with stress, how to learn to deal with dysfunction within their families. Each of us here tonight, there's not a person in this room, I believe, who has not been hurt by addiction in this county, either because of loved ones who we've lost, or people we've known, neighbors, etc., etc. And, drugs take people places they never thought they would go. It keeps them there longer than they ever thought they would be, and it causes them to do things they never thought they would do. I see patients, for example, who tell me it costs $150 a day to feed their habit. I see patients now in 3 and 4 generations in families. 20 years ago, when I was practicing medicine in Greene County, alcohol was a big thing. Now, alcohol is small. But counseling, and let me first of all say that Dr. Crabtree, very appropriately talked about, mixed addictions. And it is correct, we see a host of patients who have psychiatric disorders or have dysfunction, whether it be anxiety, depression. And I'm amazed that so many of us in this county, everybody takes a pill, stress, I need a benzo, I need a Valium, I need an anxiety. I'm taking mom's pill or dad's pill because I had a tough night. When we start to treat these diseases, we talk about opioid addiction, but it's multi-disease processes. For example, we see the patients who are on opiates, but patients start out, and the first time they get a high, as the fellow said in the video, it's hard to explain. And an addict spends the rest of their addiction trying to get that same high or to get higher. And that's someplace they can never get to, but they all continue to reach for it. And then the addiction starts. So one of the things that we see are patients who have anxiety, depression, some of the more serious problems that Dr. Crabtree talked about. So yes, in those instances, we do need to work through what some of those diagnoses are. And we do need to have treatment for some of those patients. So we do see patients who come in on benzodiazepines. We see patients who come in on stimulants, all kinds, and we have to work very carefully with the psychologists and with the psychiatrists to work through that. But in addition to that, we see patients who are not just on opiates. We see patients who are on cocaine, patients who have been addicted now to benzos. But the most important part in that process is that coordination with the patient, helping the patient to understand that there are goals and objectives, that they can have their life back, and that they can make some choices. And the other part is getting families involved. It's so hard when a family member has disappointed us, when a family member has shamed us or shamed the family, has done all kinds of things that are just terrible. But what that family member needs at the lowest point, and I can say this because at one point I led a Christian addiction program, and And I know many of you in this community, you know, it's a strong Christian background. So some of us know about the prodigal son and how the father was there to meet that person. Let me share with you that that family member, that person who is down, who's hit the bottom, what they need most of all is some understanding and to get involved and understand and help them get back to where they need to be. So counseling is very important. There's a role for Christian counseling, for people who are Christians and want to be involved in that. You know, I welcome that. Those folks who believe in other kinds of counseling, counseling is important. We need that. So we're at a point now where we can do all of these different treatments. They're all important. To say I do them all. And let me just say, there are some patients that in those treatments, the most important thing is to assess the patient, to take into account the patient's background, their medical history, the other problems that they have, the other diseases that they have, and then decide which appropriate medication is best. For example, Vivitrol is a shot that's given once a month. And some patients that works well. A lot depends on the amount of brain injury patients have had. And every time a patient takes an opiate, they're further along the road to overdose and death. And there's injury with that. And one of the things that we're learning to do is to share with patients that what the brain of a person who's been on methamphetamine, been on opiates for long periods of time, what that looks like, and what it looks like after 18 months of being off medications. Now, my own feeling is that if we're doing what we need to be doing, except for those few patients who really have had significant brain injury and who will need to be on medication of some sort, 2 years is about the length of time that we ought to be able to get most patients, if they're really willing to work hard, and it is a lot of work, folks. It's not easy. It's a heavy lift. But one of the things that we do, and the kind of medicine that I do in addiction, is that we make sure, first of all, the person must own it, must have some accountability of the addiction. And for those who family members want to get involved, we welcome them from an educational point of view. And we use the medication, again, as an opportunity so that the patient doesn't have to get involved in the criminal justice system. The patient doesn't have to be going to court, be going to trial, be going to jail. The patient doesn't have to steal so they can support the habit. A lot of retail theft in this county is associated with people trying to support their habits. So we're able to stop some of that, and we insist that the patients not just come to get their medication, not just come to get their therapy, they must participate in that therapy. They must, for example, decide on 3 or 4 areas where they have messed up their lives. For example, fathers who don't take care of their kids. Mothers who've lost their kids. You know, we have to own that. And then we have to talk about what it would be like to be able to recover some of that. And then we build goals around it. And we help them to see. And it's amazing. You know, we've seen people fathers who hadn't talked to their wives or their kids in 10 years. And say, you know, I would just like to be able to see my kids. I would love my kids to see me a little differently. So we've been able to work with that and take that. And that's when we begin to have changes. That's when we begin to see patients off medications. And there again, not every patient will be able to come off medication because there will be some significant brain injury. Some people will need a lot of structure. But again, therapy is so important. And we're making that a bedrock of the therapeutic community. We've been able to see progress. The other thing that's great about now is that we have in our county, we don't have to go outside the county to get some of the serious treatment that we need. I want to talk about something that's called IOP, or intensive outpatient therapy. That's very important that we be able to do that, and that we be able to involve families. And one of the things that I have to comment on, and that is, when I first started this, I was amazed at the patients who come in and say, I want my medicine to go. It's like, get go. I call in my prescription, I come, I get my medicine, and I want to leave. We're beginning to educate people that, we're not going to change you if all we do is give you medication and let you leave. If we're going to change this community, we're going to change this dysfunction, then we've got to get involved in your life, you've got to get involved in recovery. And one of the things that we've done for too long is that we've seen patients, we've sent them to rehab, and they've gone to rehab over and over, and they come out and they relapse. Why is that? Because we've not given them anything outside of the medications. We've not helped them build character. We've not helped them restructure their lives. We've not helped them to see issues of character, issues of accountability, and we're now beginning to do that. I'm happy to see we're talking about mental health. I'm happy to see Dr. Crabtree and the other two speakers that have come after me. And I know we want to keep this to an hour and a half, so I won't go on and on. But again, I'd like to say that therapy is huge. And again, the idea of having patients, the majority of patients on these medications for years and years, doesn't have to be. And we're seeing results now. With good therapeutics, with good counseling, we can get patients off of these medications, and we're beginning to see those changes. So with that, I will stop so that the other speakers can have time. And I'm going to be here, so if anybody has questions and would like to share things, I'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Next speaker is Thomas Slosser. Tom graduated from Waynesburg University with a master's in counseling with a specialization in addictions. He is a nationally certified counselor and licensed professional counselor in Pennsylvania. Currently, Tom has a private counseling practice and is an adjunct professor at Waynesburg University. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Slosser.
I guess I'll stand over here since these two gentlemen have. Though I am a therapist at heart, so I may wander over that way because I like to connect with people. And so it's ironic, Dr. Crabtree actually covered everything I wanted to talk to you about statistics. And then Dr. Harper covered everything I wanted to talk to you about with therapy. So I could sit down, but I'm not going to because I like to take the opportunity. One, just to say thank you for allowing me to be here. It truly is a privilege to stand up here in front of a community that I live in, knowing that there's a lot of people that have gone through a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. I've had the privilege to work on a professional level with you and also on a counseling level. And so thank you all. One, for those that are in the profession and those that are in recovery. Because it truly, someone asked me the other day, like, why do you like what you do? And I said, honestly, it's just a privilege to meet with people and to be able to sit across in another chair and meet with them in places that they don't typically share other people. And so I guess what I would like to share with you then is, since these two gentlemen covered so well the other two topics, is maybe to make it on a practical level, understanding mental health and addiction and what that looks like. And the best way I know how to communicate that is usually with a whiteboard, and I would draw pictures for you. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to share an analogy with you. When I was young, I remember watching my grandfather do a garden every year. It was a huge garden. It was lined on one side with raspberry bushes, and then on the other part of the garden was everything from corn to potatoes to strawberries and vegetables. And I use that analogy because I think gardens are a good representation of our lives. When you look at our lives and you compare it to a garden, you start with soil, right? And so we start with us as individuals as having soil, and then as life goes on, things are planted in that soil. And some of the things we recognize from the mental health side and the addiction side is that from a biological perspective, some of us, our soil is just not quite there. Some of it have deficits, some of it maybe not have the nutrients that maybe we like. And so we see from a biological and genetic place that some just start off with not great soil. And so that's a piece of it, but that's not the whole piece. As we go through life, though, we realize things get planted in that garden, right? So seeds get planted, roots grow, things come up. So whether it be a life event, whether it be what we're taught as children, whether it be a traumatic event that happens, no matter the case, when you use the analogy of a garden, you realize there's a lot of seeds that are being planted. And those seeds have vast effects on us. And so from a mental health standpoint, we see that a lot of those seeds and roots can cause what we would say depression, anxiety, swings in moods. On another side, we would see that some of those seeds are planted by life events, whether it be the loss of a loved one, whether it be a accident that happened, fill in the blank. All of you have gone through life, and I think you know what those life events are and the seeds that are planted. But when we look at therapy, we see that managing the garden is crucial to having a healthy life and having a healthy garden, essentially. And what I do in therapy a lot is help people understand their garden. That's a lot of what we do in therapy, and when we look at all the different levels of care, whether it be mental health or whether it be addiction, what we're doing is trying to help people understand what has happened and where can we move forward with that. And so, in therapy, we like to start with understanding the seeds, understanding what are those seeds that have been planted, good or bad, ups and downs, whatever it is, and then being able to move forward through that in a deeper understanding along the way. And so I think you can see how mental health plays in and then how addiction plays in, and statistically we see how those two marry all too well, more than we would like. And so the heart of therapy is really helping people through that, really helping people understand that. And I think we realize, though, what happens when we come in is that addiction comes in, whether it be intentional or unintentional with that. I heard a statistic earlier that said 80% of heroin users started with prescription opiates. Right? So a lot of them got prescribed, and some of them, again, it was prescribed because they were in an accident or there was something that happened, and fill in the blank. I am assuming a lot of you know the path that this has done and how it affects people. And so really what we're looking at, though, is dealing with this word called pain. We're dealing with pain, and we're looking at it from an emotional pain, we're dealing at it from a physical pain, and how that affects individuals. And I think the biggest thing that we see is to heal pain, we have to be able to learn how to feel and understand the hurt and pain that's happened. You know, and so when we look at the statistics that are there, and we look at all the treatment options that are offered, and we're going to hear another incredible treatment option that is out there as well, it's really looking at and understanding pain from all types of levels. And I think all of us can recognize and acknowledge pain in some form or another. And I think from a therapist standpoint, it is a heavy burden to bear watching people struggle with pain all the time. And so hopefully through these events and bringing awareness and understanding the mental health aspect and understanding addiction and understanding that this has clearly been a problem, is going to continue to be a problem, as projections for 2017 seem to be higher than 2016. And 16 was a pretty rough year for us as a country. I heard a statistic that we lost more in 2016 than the entirety of the Vietnam War, is one I read this morning. And so, to kind of wrap up, I write letters to explain how I feel. I'm a therapist. So I'm all about feelings. Most people don't like to address feelings, and so I wrote this for you guys to hopefully bring together really what I'm talking about, but also to shed some light, but also to comfort, also to challenge, kind of all of it. That's what we therapists do, is all the above. And so I'll share it with you. May the garden of your lives be bountiful and fruitful. May you increase the awareness of knowing the soil you have and the intentional and unintentional growth that is occurring. May you have the courage to pull out that which is causing harm and pain, and may you have the courage to plant new seeds. Allow shells to break that will bring new growth. May the gardens of your past not cast dark shadows, but may they give insight into understanding yourself even more. Allow others to be a part of the process, the tilling, the fertilizing, the planting, and the maintaining. We know it takes a village to walk through this life. At times we will stumble and at times we will flourish, but may you not do it alone. Addiction wants to separate, pull apart, diminish lives. It does not care what you look like, what background or belief you may have. May we conquer this epidemic together. May we advocate together for better programs and treatment opportunities. May we wipe out this infection that has taken far too many lives from us. May we not allow the stigma of mental health and addiction rest under the rug anymore. We can no longer say that these are junkies with a problem. We have to do this together. We have to address the multiple forms of pain and how it is affecting us. To the person struggling with addiction in this room, know that you are loved. Know that there are people that will not give up on you. To the family members, I know it's hurt, I know it hurts, and I know it's been a long journey for you. To others, may we be part of the solution. May we join forces and not allow the past walls stand any longer. May we join forces. May we see the plan and gifts God has laid out for all of us, that you may have a harvest of 30, 60, or 100-fold, knowing no matter how much or how little it may seem that we are all flourishing together for a brighter future. I thank you for the opportunity to share this.
Our next speaker is Matthew Pelton. Matt is a clinical aid and recovery coach for Adult and Teen Challenge of Western Pennsylvania. He is a graduate of the program with a desire to help others from the pit of addiction, a problem that he says he knows all too well. Today, he is clean and sober for over 2 years and working towards his counseling degree. Now, come up, ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Pelton.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me well? All right. Yeah, first I just want to thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me represent Teen Challenge, a program that I did go through. But initially I just want to thank God. You know, that paradox of being broken and put back together. I have been in courtrooms like this before, and I have been sitting in that seat. It was over there. And I was nervous, I was scared, you know, and I, you know, whether it was a possession charge or trying to just get away from the police, I wasn't living right. And, you know, the judge fortunately had mercy on me, you know, more than once. So, you know, I think back to those times in this year, and I'm just so grateful today. You know, I mean, it's a blessing to be able to be here with you and just tell you a little story that has to do with this epidemic and has to do with the problem of addiction. I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm not a Pennsylvania guy or a native. I grew up in a little town outside Cape Cod called Middleborough, Massachusetts. And I had a good family. I had a brother who is older than me, and he always looked out for me. I played sports, I sang, I did music of all sorts, and continued on through my schooling. Got into high school, and I believe, like most kids my age, I started turning to to maybe smoking a cigarette or two, sneaking a beer for my dad. And I realized once I, got drunk or intoxicated for the first time that it was something nice. It was an escape from something. And I think what I was looking for at that time in my life as a teenager rebelling was acceptance. And I found it in a group of, youths or guys my age, some older than me, to be accepted through them, through smoking, through drinking, and through experimenting with drugs. I graduated from high school in 1999. Around that time, Oxycontin came into play. Heavy use of Vicodin, oxycodone. It would be in my grandparents' medicine cabinet. I remember it very clearly, going over there, walking into their bathroom and using the restroom and running the faucet water, going through it and searching through their medicine cabinet. It was nothing I was proud of, but at the time they were out there. That addiction kicked off in my 20s. Oxycontin was readily available in Massachusetts. I started snorting it, I started chewing it, whatever I could do. And very quickly, it gave me a false identity of who I was. I was a young man. I had pushed off and turned from college. I turned from jobs. I was going from job to job, relationship to relationship, losing friends. My family was very concerned to me. They would reach out to me often. They had moved out of Massachusetts, but they were very much in my life emotionally and as physically as possible. But they knew something was going on. It was drug use. It was seeking Oxycontin, putting that on top of everything. It comes over everything. It came over a job. It came over paying my bills. It came over loyalty, trust, all those things that my parents had, tried to teach me growing up. And for about 10 years, that struggle went on, and it was a nightmare. It was nothing that I was proud of at the time. I was very shameful to talk about it. Today, I'm very, proud, and I look at it as a blessing almost in my life, because it's made me the man that I am today, a better man. And I own my choices. I take responsibility for the bad choices that I made. When I was like 32, I was living down in South Carolina. I had moved down there, and something I always say in my testimonies when I talk with people is that there's no geographic solution to an emotional problem. And what that meant to me was that I was always trying to move and run from state to state, or leave, a certain job or relationship, and thinking that it was going to get better, but it never did. I always found more drugs. I always sought out, my selfish desires first, and that left me in very much despair, in the end. I went to a teen challenge when I was 32 years old. I'm 36 today. I went in when I was 32, and my dad had said, all right, enough's enough. In and out of jails, doing a little bit of time in counties and stuff. I had, lost purpose for my life. At this point, I was like, who am I? What am I? What am I doing? Where am I going with my life? I'm in my early 30s. I have, blown a lot of opportunities and blown a lot of shots with this drug, man. It's really ruined me. So I went to Teen Challenge and got clean. I turned from that continued use. I'd clean up for a week. I'd clean up for maybe 5 to 10 weeks even. And I would get clean, and then I'd go back to it. So in 2013 was the first time I had done 3 or 4 months clean. And what I did with Adult Teen Challenge is, when you do a 4-month induction program down there, you do 4 months and you go for another 10 months. It's long-term treatment. Long-term treatment was absolutely what I needed. I had also dabbled with heroin throughout those years. Heroin was easier to find. I'm sure we all know, everyone knows this story. It is. During those times, the Oxycontin kind of tapered away from the streets, and heroin was readily available. I watched friends, I watched family members that I knew die from it, and it was scary. I had overdosed many times myself. So I get into this program, and I got clean. I did the 14-month program, and after the program, you can stay on. You can do a discipleship where you can stay on and have good accountability in your life. You can pour into the young men's lives coming in. Some of the guys are older than me, and they've had lifelong struggles with addiction for 50 to 60 years. I believe that I'm taking a lot of the skills that I've learned in my sobriety, and I'm really trying to love on the guys that come in and teach them the coping skills that they need. I just finished my first year of school for counseling. I do want to be a counselor in addiction, and I want to give back and help others. I have over 2 years clean from drugs and alcohol. So I just want to say the Teen Challenge was nothing but a blessing in my life. It gave me shelter, it gave me food, it gave me friends, it gave me fellowship, and it gave me a relationship with God. I picked up the Bible and started reading scripture that really would resonate in my heart and in my soul, and I would say, wow, these are things that I had no idea of. One that always sat with me was 2 Timothy 2:22. He says, flee the evil desires of your youth, pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord with a pure heart. And I read things like that, and I say, wow, that's something I never learned in the streets. You'll never get that from a movie. You won't get that from a song. So our program, right now we have a 30-day program, and I'm a clinical aide. I'm a recovery coach in it. Guys come in, it used to always be 14 months. Now we have a program where guys will come in and they'll do 30 days. When people were calling our center, they would call up and they'd say that they needed help themselves or their loved one needed help. They would ask us how long the program was, and I'd tell them 14 months, and they'd hang up. That long-term treatment was scary for them. Over the past year or two, we've been working with people in the area, with the Pennsylvania area as well. We've also been working with Pastor Berkey. And what we're working on is we do now have a 30-day treatment. 86% of the guys that come into our program, they've been going to our long-term treatment. So they're doing 30 plus 10, so they're doing 11 months in total in treatment. And we've seen such a success from it, where guys can come in from the streets, whatever situation they might be in, and turn from those evil desires. Like the scripture I just read, turn from that lifestyle and start focusing on better things. We provide coping skills, we provide one-on-one counseling, and where men can actually start to see their addiction, see their behaviors. So that's our hope, is that we get awareness out there. It's such a problem. I've met so many guys over the years that have come in for 30 days, 10 days. I've seen so much success in the program. I've seen it in my own life. My family is very happy and proud of me today. I feel that doing things like this is great because it brings awareness and it helps me to keep my integrity, to be a better man and continue to stay clean, sober, and turn from those evil ways. So I'll be here as well. I thank you all for having me, and thank you.
Okay, at this time, we are going to begin our question and answer session. We just have a couple of guidelines that we'd like to go over with you. For those of you who are wanting to ask questions to anyone on the panel or to share anything, we do have a couple of guidelines here. We ask that the questions please be related to mental health and drug or alcohol addiction. We ask that there'll be no political questions or comments or remarks. We ask that we do not talk about any specific cases, and we ask that everybody please use civil and public decorum. So at this time, we're going to open up the floor, so to speak, and if anybody would like to comment, we have a couple of people here with microphones. Raise your hand, and they will be happy to come over, and you can ask a question or make your comments in a microphone so everybody can hear.
Does your treatment include Suboxone or anything like that, what you did?
Oh, sorry. No microphone? No. Teen Challenge is a faith-based drug and alcohol rehabilitation program, and we have never offered like an MAT THC of any sort. We don't have no controlled substances. Guys do take meds there. But no, and that's a great question, and I thank you for asking, because I kind of left it out. No Suboxone and no methadone, and again, I don't disagree with those things. Heroin is such a hard drug to come off of. The withdrawal symptoms are terrible, and as the doctor said, the damage it does to the brain and whatnot. I do agree fully that Suboxone and methadone can be helpful for a period of time in a taper, but no, we don't offer any of that at our program.
Do you speak at schools?
Yes. Yeah, I've gone to a couple schools now and spoke. I've also gone to different counties. We went to Carrick County, the city of Carrick a few weeks ago. And it was just a regular town meeting, but there was probably just as many people at that, and they're just struggling. It's such an epidemic out there, and we lost so many loved ones, and the crime and whatnot. So we went out and we spoke, and we gladly do schools and speak to the children. I think that's really big.
Yeah, I think you could relate a lot better. I mean, not, insulting anybody, but I think kids could relate. I mean, that would maybe give them the courage
That's right.
to hear, they heard your story. I mean, I think a lot of kids would probably relate to you. So, and I commend you. Great job.
Thanks.
Perhaps maybe that's something that could be discussed in the near future, a way to have this, contact the school districts.
Yeah, we have a booth downstairs with all our literature for Teen Challenge if anybody wants to know more or learn more about it.
Is there a website that?
Yeah, there's a website. I have all the pamphlets downstairs, and we have a crisis number that you can call, and anyone from Pennsylvania can call it. If you're struggling in that area or you have a loved one that is, and they'll help you. We have there's a Teen Challenge in every state in this country. There's 250 worldwide, and there's one in Philadelphia. We're in Cheswick, Pennsylvania, and it's right outside of Pittsburgh and New Kensington area. If people aren't familiar with that area, and there's a women's home as well in Philadelphia.
So information can be found downstairs. There's a resource area downstairs. Please be sure to check that out on your way out this evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'm an addict. And first of all, I don't think mental health is addressed as much as it should be. And it seems like everybody is a lot against the methadone treatment, and I don't understand why. Today I'm 6 months clean on it, and it's really helped me a lot.
I have a question for Dr. Harper, and then again for Teen Challenge. What is the average length of time of treatment for a patient before he comes off of either methadone or Suboxone?
I think the answer to that question, it depends on the provider, because there certainly are people who, on any of those medications, again, whether it be Vivitrol, Suboxone, Subutex, or methadone, that are on it for years. So, what I believe, again, is that with the exception of those patients who've had rather severe brain injury and need very close structure, that 2 years is the length of time usually with starting a patient. I believe that patient should be stabilized on the amount of medication that it takes to eliminate their withdrawal symptoms. The great majority of patients will do well as far as withdrawal, from about 55 milligrams of this methadone to about 80 milligrams. If you look at the studies, the great majority of people are on somewhere between 80 to 120 milligrams. Now, having said that, We certainly see patients who are on 300 milligrams of methadone. We certainly see patients who've been on it for long periods of time. I don't think that's a good way to practice, and I don't think that's in the best interest of the patient. Having said that, I can only talk about my practice and what I think is important, how we treat it. I feel the same thing if it's Suboxone. I think you have to stabilize the patient. And generally, you can stabilize the patient in a couple of months in terms of the dose of the medicine. And it usually will be somewhere 90% of those patients will do well on 24 milligrams of Suboxone a day. So that's, 16 milligrams. That would be 2 strips, 1 strip twice a day. Occasionally, patients need 3 strips. But you can stabilize most of those patients in a couple of months. That becomes a matter of counseling and working with the patient. And I believe that after about 6 months, you can start to taper. How quickly you can taper depends on the patient. You can start to taper, and how quickly we can stay with the tapering depends on the patient's reaction, how much they are willing to work to change their lives. As this young man said earlier, that make better choices. You heard him say, I own my choices. Okay? That's the key. I've got to own my choices. I've got to acknowledge, part of the problem is with me, so I have to be willing to deal with that. So I believe 2 years for most of this.
Okay, with that being said, in a 2-year period, what is the success rate of people who completely come on and are, I guess they kick the habit, so to speak. They've gone through the counseling, they've owned the problem. So what is the success rate of that?
Well, I think, first of all, that's a new concept. Because the great majority of therapeutic programs don't necessarily encourage people to come off. Okay? So we're now beginning to do that. And what's important when a person comes off, whether it's, now he mentioned Teen Challenge, and I don't think Teen Challenge is a great program. But he also said that even though Teen Challenge does not promote medication and does not offer it, a number of the patients that are there are on medications, but they're on medications until they get solid background in the teachings of whether it is biblical or whatever. They're getting solid therapy, they're getting solid counseling. Now, so that's extremely important.
Okay, one other question, then I want to ask Matthew a question. And I don't want to take a lot of time, but what is the cost involved, per patient?
Well, the great majority of the patients that we're seeing have insurance. Right? It's usually, when it comes to the opioid, it's generally speaking, medical assistance. So medical assistance covers the great majority of that. And there are different formulas, there's a bundle approach and so forth. But if we look, for example, if it's methadone, it's about $90 a week for treatment. Right? If it is therapy, not the medication itself, and that includes not only the medication itself that's required, it also includes the counseling that is required. Now, I personally believe there's not enough counseling because the government only pays for 2.5 hours a month for counseling. Patients need a lot more. And we give more, even though we don't necessarily get paid for all of that we do. But we think it's important, so we do it anyway. Now, if you look at whether it be Suboxone, whether it be Vivitrol, the great majority of that is covered by medical assistance. So out-of-pocket expense to the patient is, in this county, pretty nil. Because the government says if you have medical assistance, then you can't charge the patient. So you must bill for medical assistance. So that's the good part if you, in that. Compared to, I said some other, compared to the cost of sending patients in this vicious cycle of rehab, and which costs a lot more in some places, is up to $400 a day. I don't know what it is in this county, but it can be very high. And then once the patients get out, there are patients who are drug-free, they continue to need counseling. Christian counseling, for those who don't want that, they still need counseling. And in order to help people not relapse, they must continue to stay grounded in counseling. And so that's key.
Thank you, Dr. Harper, for all the information. Matthew, the Teen Challenge program, can you enlighten us on the cost and the success rate that Teen Challenge has had throughout the years?
Yeah, over the years, Teen Challenge has had a very high success rate. It's about 85%. And that stands for within a 5-year period of the graduate. It's a 14-month program. It's a long-term treatment. And then they offer a discipleship program after, like I had done, and I just did up until recently, because I got hired by Teen Challenge, but that's what they let you do. They work up into an internship program. So that success rate it climbs, and over the years it's been in the 80s, and it continues to stay that way, and that is over a 5-year period. Some guys can relapse when they leave. It happens. I know one of the gentlemen here had said that, and it does happen, and I believe that is part of the recovery at times, and you need to see that. You need to be able to see what's going on in your heart, what's going on in your addiction, and a lot of times that can really make a guy wake up and realize what's going on. But we try to prevent that, and as he was saying, the prevention is key. We do work with that as well. We also, we offer Christian counseling in our program, of course, but then we don't push that on all of our students there. We do help them if they want an alternative. We work with them on recovery as far as preventing relapse from happening. What are your triggers? We do work the AA steps. We work 12 steps in our program as well, and we also have NA come into our program. So it's pretty broad at this point, and it's going really, really well. Yeah.
First, congratulations on your clean time. That's amazing when you see somebody who can keep themselves clean for 2 years. But I wanted to say that, Tom, I thought you really set the stage well, that there's different packages for different people for different drugs. And one of the things that I think Dr. Harper addresses is that we got to watch we become too judgmental and too preachy for people who have a real physical addiction to a drug that's going to kill them. And so, God bless you, because I think that's what we want, a recovery like yours. But I don't think everybody's ready for that at the same time. I think that's the pinnacle. That's what you want. But man, you sometimes have to do the work that Tom talks about to get there, where you need the medication to help keep you alive. And if any of you know anybody here who's had a narcotic addiction, they don't have the choice that you're able to have right now in your life, and to make a decision that, okay, I gotta keep my life straight. So I worry about those people that all of us know that are just another dosage away from dying. When you talk 50,000 people a year in this country from opiate death, we know we're gonna save some, with Dr. Harper's help, and move them right along the chain, I think, with Tom, and I think hopefully the clean time. So congratulations, though.
I would just like to ask, if you have a family member that's using, what would be the quickest road you'd take to get them help? I know with mental illness you can 302 somebody because they're a physical harm to themselves or somebody else, but what would be the quickest road to get someone help in addiction? Because, I've been in that avenue and tried many avenues and there was none. So I just wonder, from all your studying, what would be the quickest route to take to get somebody help?
I can address that. I've had the privilege to work for several different organizations in Greene County and Washington, and I think you're right, it's hard. That's the number one thing that we see is that it's hard. I've tried to get people to detox and beds are full. We try to get people in the inpatient, and inpatient beds are full. And so what's the quickest route? There is no quick route. And that's a hard reality to see. Obviously, if you have state insurance, you can go through the county, and there's things that way. Some places you can call the rehab directly and say, can I get a bed? But even then, I've called around, and I spend a whole afternoon just calling around rehabs all over Pennsylvania, trying to get in. And I think that's what's hard. And the level of cares, I think when we look at it, just to give an explanation, when someone is ready to get treatment, right? So we try to get them in detox to detox off the substances. Then we try to get them into it, some type of inpatient, whether it be a long-term program, but most of the times we see it's a 30-day program. And I think from there, then they can either do the long-term, or there's other levels of care that are able to happen. But again, looking at those things, we realize, and you hear this a lot, like we sent someone to 30-day treatment and they didn't get better. 30-day inpatient was never meant to cure anything. It was just kind of, it's a building block that needs to be built on, you know. And so from there, you've heard some terms. I think Dr. Harper mentioned intensive outpatient. There's a thing called partial hospitalization, which is like a full-day outpatient program. And then there's an intensive outpatient, which isn't quite full day, but it's still a lot of the day. And so there's like this progression that we see, and just with a Teen Challenge and the length of their program, we definitely, at least I know statistically, we know that long-term programs have way higher success rates in that. But to just answer the initial question, what's the fastest way? It's hard. You have to fight for it. I guess that's the number one thing I would say is I think, you know, I know me working with the coalition, we're trying to find ways, and I personally, with some others, are trying to work on getting a direct access to a detox for us in Greene County, and hitting roadblocks, and it's hard, but we're working on it. And so we are trying to speedline that process, but it's just a hard process, for sure.
I would just like to respond a little bit to that. An addict is looking for opiates, or it's an addict. He or she is an addict. When they're at their lowest point, when they either don't have money to pay for the drug, now they're willing to listen. Because you're offering them something that will help their misery, that will help their nausea, their vomiting, their diarrhea, their restless leg syndromes, all of these things. They're interested. We have patients who come into our clinic, and they come. We have some of those patients, you know, the father brings them in a pickup truck, or the mother brings them, or some significant other brings them. And the first thing they come into the clinic, you know, I'm in withdrawal. My habit is $100 a day, and I'm out of money. What are you going to do for me? Now, if we say you can't get medication, if we say we can start you tomorrow, of the ones that leave, probably a third will come back tomorrow. Because in the interim, you know, they will either find some dope, some will overdose, a few will die. Okay. But unless we can meet them at that time and be prepared to offer them something that will help stop the pain. And once we start stopping some of the pain, now we have this person's attention. Right? So, or sometimes loved ones bring them. But we've got to establish a relationship with that patient right then and there. We've got to start treatment right then and there if we can. And if we're unable to, for a variety of reasons, we've got to have a relationship that that patient can continue to communicate with us through the next 12 to 24 hours, and we can get them on treatment. And they've got to see quick results.
Hi guys, my name's Nate. I'm with Representative Pam Springer's office. We had a phone call just this morning, and piggybacking off of what you said, Dr. Harper, and Tom, you as well. Nobody's going to get clean if they themselves don't want to get clean. But this morning we got a phone call from a parent that said, my son is addicted. He will not go to rehab. I need to get him help. As a state representative's office, I don't have an answer to that. And I know that that son's not going to get clean unless he decides that he himself wants to get clean. But for those parents that at least get their kid in the car and bring them to you, you know, just do they actually get help? Like you said, some of them leave. What about the parents that can't get their kids in the car to go get that help? What do we tell those parents to try to help those kids?
Well, a couple of things. Greene County is fortunate in a sense that we do have what's called fact buses that can transport people for the medication and so forth. But in addition to that, there's some things that we can do in this county. There's a warm handoff program that has worked very well in other counties, particularly Washington County, which is a county close to us. We start at our facility, we start at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we offer medication up until 11 o'clock. We have some of us on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I happen to be one of those. So if we get messages or information, we're prepared to talk to that patient, meet that patient, and reach out and start that process. And there have been situations, for example, we don't usually start patients on medications on Saturday or on Sunday. And I'm in church every Sunday unless it's a real emergency. I'm in Sunday school, and I have a 6 o'clock service, and I'm there too for that. But even with that, there are times when my staff calls me, and I'm at that clinic at 4 o'clock on Saturday morning, or on Sunday morning before Sunday school, or in between service, if we need to get that patient started. So I think you have to be available. You have, especially, and we're doing that. So, and we're available to go into the hospitals, the emergency rooms. We're in the process, I understand, to get something in this county called Navigator, who will help in doing some of that. Personally, we'd love to see that person at the hospital because we meet some needs, but things are happening in the county, and I can say that our organization is there, willing and ready to do that, and we're happy to give a number where we can be reached.
And I just want to say with Adult Teen Challenge, to broaden the net, so to speak, what I was talking about earlier is there is a 30-day detox center on the eastern side of the state. Not at my center in Cheswick, but there's one, it's at our training center. It's a 30-day detox, guys come in, and that's the tool that we're using to get guys, just as these gentlemen said, I mean, the addiction is so heavy, and these guys need something more. And so we do offer, there is Suboxone that we do offer the guys on a 7-day taper, and that gets them there, that tapers them off of the heroin, and then we keep them there for 30 days. And our success rate at 86 right now is high as that because guys are continuing in long-term treatment. So if anyone wants any information, Caleb and Michael and myself will be downstairs. We have the detox information for you guys, and we have cards, and we have pamphlets, and detox, I believe, is that answer. When you're in such a deep addiction as heroin use, you got to detox.
Thank you. I think the gentleman over there had the most significant question when the parent says, my kid needs help and he won't go. That seems to be the biggest problem. And I think that these town meetings is the initial stage of correcting that. In fact, Judge Toothman for getting these town hall meetings started. But this hall should be standing room only. And the people that are in here need to go home, come out of the closet, and start talking about addiction. The more people in Greene County that talk about addiction, those that are addicted and those that are especially not addicted, need to bring it out into the open. That's when you're going to get the people that need treatment to seek treatment. Dr. Crabtree said 7%. well, 40,000, that says to me 2,800 people in Greene County are addicted. I'm sure there's not 2,800 getting treatment. Why not? It's a shame, the lowest level of human personality. Shame on the family. We know there's a physical addiction to it that they just can't stop. And the stigma of the neighbor and even the family members, the stigma that's put on them, they might as well crawl in a hole. And we're all guilty of that. My background's in education, and I always said it takes 3 people to educate a kid: the parent, the teacher, and the student. And it's the same with addiction. If the parent is absent, it's going to be tough for that addict to get treatment, proper treatment. If that provider, that doctor, that clinic, that service that the gentleman was talking about, if they're absent, it doesn't happen. So I'm not to belabor this point, but everybody in here needs to get out and start talking. We have to tell the addicts there's hope for you. We want you to get sober. We want to help you. We don't want to kick you to the curb. But there's too many, and we know it in this county. I had a person come to me and say, if it was up to me, I'd get a bulldozer, dig a hole, and put them all in. I said, you know what? I thought that way myself one time. But then I thought, what if it was my son? Would I let you put him in a hole? She said, I never thought of it that way. I don't have that problem in my family. I said, well, you don't now. Let's hope you never do, because most people experience it. So let's get the stigma out, and let's get out and start talking about it. I was appalled. I went to a church service and heard a preacher say, these junkies. And I just put chills up my back. It's not because the preacher was a bad person. He didn't understand addiction. That's the other thing about this, and that's why these town hall meetings are so important, to get educated. Dr. Harper, Dr. Crabtree, these gentlemen, they're helping us get an understanding. But if we go home and forget about it, well, then it's all for naught. I won't take up any more time, but the question was very significant. How do we get those people that need treatment into treatment?
Yeah, and I think just to touch on what does a parent do that doesn't, like, that their child's not ready. I know that there are a couple support groups. I won't put her on the spot, but I know the director of SBHS is over here, and I know they have a program for family members that have loved ones. And so there is a service. What's the date on that?
It's the 4th Wednesday of every month at the Care Center from 5 to 6:30. There's pamphlets and flyers downstairs.
Yeah, so the 4th Wednesday?
Yeah, 4th Wednesday of every month.
So the 4th Wednesday, so they have a service, and I know First Baptist has an Eagle's Wings, you know, and so I would say, you know, for a parent who doesn't know what to do is get support. You know, you can't do it alone, like this gentleman was saying, and I've met with a lot of people sometimes, you know, being able to understand what you can do as a parent, not enable, and to learn all those things. And so finding support, I know those are at least 2 options that we have in our county for parents.
May I just say, Eagles Wings meets at First Baptist Church, second Tuesday of every month.
And that's for
The family.
Yeah, that would be for the family members who have loved ones who struggle with addiction. So either of those are good options to the other question that was asked about what a parent can do.
And I just want to say really quick, that's what helped me, is when my parents stopped helping me. Like, they emotionally were there, sure, but the only thing they would have helped me do was get into a rehab, and that was it. Nothing else. No more money. If anything, I wasn't even welcome at their house to a point. It was when my father told me, no more, I'm done. and I'll help you get into a rehab, and that's it. And I understand every situation is different, every circumstance can be different, and you love your family, you love your sons and daughters. But my parents enabled me for quite a little bit, and I took advantage of that. I was manipulative as an addict, and I learned how to manipulate them, and I learned how to manipulate others to get what I wanted. I was selfish, and it was all about the drug. And it will continue to be that as long as you're in addiction. So that's all I really wanted to say.
My question is, so what if Suboxone is the drug of choice? What happens then? Because, I mean, there are people who will use an opiate because they have used Suboxone to actually then get into a clinic so they can then continue to use Suboxone because that's their drug of choice.
Well, again, it depends on the philosophy of the providing organization. And by that I mean, that's why some people continue to be on medication for long periods of time. Our philosophy is just different. And that is, we're not there to support your habit. We're there to stop your withdrawal symptoms. And then at that point, we don't continue to increase the medication, and we have a system in which you must accept some responsibility, and if you're there to get better, then there's a program, and you must work the program. Not everybody who goes to a treatment center is in treatment. In fact, in most treatment centers, the great majority of people are not in treatment. They're there getting medicine. If you're in treatment, then you have goals. The object is not to stay on the medicine. The object is to reduce and lower the medications and to take back your life. So again, our philosophy is that if you come to our center, we want you to be in treatment. You're not, we don't want you to come there just to get the drug. There are other places that you can go, but that's not what we do.
Hi, I'm in recovery, and I know a lot of times there's a small window to help someone. I belonged to an organization many years ago where we gave scholarships. It was a paying school for kids at risk, but we gave so many scholarships a month, so there would be less kids fall through the cracks, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Do you guys offer anything like that? Are there any? We did a couple scholarships a month. The parent called and they said they couldn't pay the tuition. We just decided to take it. Because that window means life and death. I don't know what I believe anymore. Don't enable someone, enable someone. I didn't enable him in the end, and he's dead. I personally am in recovery through the 12 steps. I mean, I needed a detox, and I agree with long term. But the humanity in us should say, if this president is going to, whatever he's declaring, a national emergency, don't we decide, hey, we'll give a couple of scholarships. We have to go an extra bit. We have to mention 12 steps if that works for some people. Just everything and anything. So that's what it was.
I guess just first off, I guess from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry for your loss. And I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned is just the significance of the recovery community in our county here, and how much with AA and NA. And I forgot to mention Al-Anon earlier in helping. Al-Anon is a program designed for the parents. And it's an incredible program. I know people talk to it. So to address the scholarship thing, I can't speak on behalf of these, but I'm going to speak on behalf of the coalition, and we are working on scholarships to help people go into recovery. That is one of our goals that we are doing, is to help fund people with that. That's the newer goal that we're doing. It is something that we are trying to help with this community specifically. So I can't speak to that. That is our goal, to help people that maybe don't have those funds, for sure.
Well, I'd like to just say a little bit about sponsorships. At our facility, again, most of the people, it's not an issue of cost at our facility. But I'm also involved in, as some of you know, in the foundation. And that foundation certainly gives scholarships. That foundation has given scholarships and grants for some of the organizations on this platform, into the schools, getting the curriculum into the schools about addiction, and some other forms of grants that are available. I would encourage people to come more familiar with that foundation, Green County. That website, the executive director is in this room tonight. It's right on High Street. Come by, ask about it. There are things that are available. So in that sense, I know that there are some things. I also know that for those who don't have a place, there's the Bird home, there's the Oxford home, and I know that people who have made funds available to handle and help with the first 90 days in terms of cost of that for people and so forth. So there are some things being done in the community to do just that. And then finally, for some of those people who maybe can't afford it, there's things in the county. For example, there's the SCA in the county who looks at those people who need help and who may not have the insurance in which to do it. And they look at that and in many instances are able to cover the cost of that until that person can get on medical assistance. And so there are things that are being done. Do we need more? Yes, absolutely.
I think also, just to be fair to the other facility in our county, SPHS, I worked for them up in Washington for a little while, and as a counselor that worked there, what we can do, you mentioned the SCA, that's something that I would do when I worked for them, is that we would get individuals that do not have the pay to be able to do that, and we would contact the SCA, we'd fill out paperwork, and then they would be able to let us know how many sessions that we could afford for treatment. And in that process, the goal is then to help them find additional funding, and so that they would be connected if they need county insurance or state insurance to help that in that regard. And so I can speak for Washington, but I know Waynesburg does very similar things, and she's not in her head in the greens. And so that's also an option, is I know you can call SPHS and they can hook you up with a lot of that if you're looking for outpatient treatment here in Greene County.
Okay, yes, we have a speaker here, and then we have a speaker behind them as well. She had her hand up before, so.
You actually don't even need the mic. Mr. Harper, where is your facility and how long has it been there? Is there a name to it?
Yes, it's actually the Green Treatment Center. It's in Carmichael's. And we currently we've been there actually over since February the 22nd this year. We started out just doing methadone. We've now been licensed by the state of Pennsylvania to do Suboxone, to do Vivitrol, and we're in the process of being able to start intensive outpatient therapy. And we also do some detox. For example, we don't like 7-day detox because it's very difficult to do a 7-day detox unless you have somewhere for them to go. 90% are going to relapse. That's just the way it is. However, we have 30-day detox, but that gives us time to talk to that patient, to begin to talk about, we need to get you into a program. Is that program going to be our cocaine group or benzodiazepine group? Is it going to be IOP? Do you need to now look at a transition time of Suboxone or a transition time of Vivitrol? If you want it to be teen challenge, we're okay with that. But we can help you get into a program. But you need something beyond detox. Because if that's all you got, 90% of you people are going to relapse. That's just the way it is, folks, because they're not ready. They can't handle the heavy lifting at that point. Teen Challenge can help them get there. We can help them get there through counseling and so forth, and continue the medication for a period of time as they get stronger. Our objective is not to feed people. We want to teach them how to fish so they can feed themselves.
Okay, Matthew, I'd like to ask you 2 quick questions, if I may. How hard is it for me to be entered into the Teen Challenge program if I'm an addict? And how much does it cost me?
All right, so our new program with the 30-day, we now take Allegheny County Insurance, and we are in the process really soon of getting Value Behavioral Health Insurance, Medicaid style insurance, which a lot of guys have and are seeking treatment right now, and we do take that. So with that, we also have our long-term treatment. Our long-term treatment, Teen Challenge has been around for like 50 years. I know when I came into the program, I didn't pay anything because I didn't have anything to give. And I basically, went through the program at no cost for our long-term treatment. But if you call our crisis line, I can give you all those numbers. They can set up a payment plan with you. They do that quite often with most families. They'll set up a monthly payment plan. Right now for our detox also will come on and we'll pick you up, and that's kind of like where I'm at right now. I'm in the front lines down in Pittsburgh right now, just driving all over, and I'm literally picking guys up down there. They're calling us, calling our crisis line, and if they are approved through the insurance, then they qualify for our detox, or they qualify for our 30-day program. I'll just go right down and pick them up. I'll bring them in, and most of these guys are coming in with no clothes. Nothing really. I mean, they don't have anything but the scrubs that they're coming out of Mercy Detox with or Western Psych. So we would provide them with clothes and treatment for 30 days. Again, in our hopes of, we want to share the gospel with them. We want to be that city on the hill and be a beacon of hope for them, and we want to offer them our long-term treatment. So if you, as far as the cost goes, we are now taking insurance for Allegheny and for Value Behavioral Health. We have a crisis line. You can talk to them, and they're our admissions team, and they work with every family member that has a loved one, in addiction and that needs help.
You won't be turned away. If you have no money, you won't be turned away.
Right now, I would say our admissions team is trying to help every person that calls. That's why we're broadening our net, so to speak, again, with trying different avenues. If you don't qualify for our 30-day program, which we have, and we have a detox for that, if you don't qualify for that, we try to help everybody that we can, and you can get a fit at either our bed in Cheswick, or you can get a bed in Philly. There's beds in Sand Hills down in North Carolina. Again, we have a Teen Challenge all over the country, so we try and provide somebody with a bed that needs one.
And again, more information can be found. You guys have stuff downstairs, right, the resource table. So again, please make sure that you stop by the resource table.
Thank you.
I understand that this county was trying to get Teen Challenge into Greene County. Is that possible anymore? I know that I think there was a empty school building that was trying to be purchased.
I believe my director just came out here today. Pretty sure.
Let me address that. Still, as a coalition, pushing for that. We're working on a location. Didn't get the first one. Did some learning from it. And we are in the process of still going forward and we're still working with Teen Challenge to bring them into the area. So it's a slow process that we are working on.
My name is Heather, I'm a recovering addict. This question is for Dr. Harper. With these maintenance programs, I find that most addicts are just substituting one addiction for another. And for 80 plus years, Alcoholics Anonymous was the only thing that worked. So with your program, are your patients required to go to AA or any meetings, find a sponsor, a home group, that type of thing?
Our patients are required to get a certain amount of counseling in our program. In addition to that, we certainly do encourage them to get outside counseling, the groups that you mentioned. We tie to our patients' goals and objectives. Now the question becomes, where can you get support for those goals and objectives? Some of which you can get from us. You can get the medication temporarily, that's a help. You can get some of the counseling, and we have trained counselors who can help with that. In addition to that, because to meet your goals, there are other support groups. So do we encourage that? Do we have those groups literature? Yes. Do we invite those groups if they want to participate in our organization? The answer is yes. And patients do get credit if they come in and say, in addition to what we're doing here, in this setting, we're doing that. We want to know, and we help support that and help the person to reach the goal. You know, we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the tools. We want people to get tools, and these organizations that you mentioned have been around and they have some good tools. So why can't we work together? Makes sense. And that's what we're part of, that's what we want to do.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if anybody's going to be available after this is over, but I believe that these gentlemen here on the panel will be here if anybody would like to speak with them afterwards. We do have a comment, or we wanted to hear from Pastor Berkey at this time.
Just wanted to say thank you for all the information. And they will be able to answer many of your questions. Also, throughout the audience, there are several ministers here. If you just raise your hand quickly, I know I can see too, and Father Francis is here. And they will, too, help direct you, because we're trying to bring the ministers together so that we can get people in the right direction to get help. So as we progress, we'll be getting information to them so that they can get information to you. So if you have a need, feel free to see one of us, and we will do our best to help you in everything that there is. And we thank everybody for being here. Thank Judge Tuesday and the panel as well.
And I also just wanted to mention too, it's my understanding that this town hall meeting will be, it's being filmed, and it will be presented on YouTube in the very near future. And if you're interested in checking it out, we're not quite sure when it will be available, but it will be soon. And if you go on YouTube and just search Memories and Melodies, that's the name of the company, Memories and Melodies, you will be able to find this town hall meeting on film on YouTube in the very near future. And at this time, I would like to ask the Honorable Judge Toothman to please come up and lead us into closing.
The conversation has to continue, but the meeting sometimes needs to close. There's nothing harder than closing a good meeting on a very important topic. I don't know how to do it. That's why we're still here 3 years later, and yet we will continue to do this. I do think we need to take a moment and ask those families who are willing to. If you've lost a loved one or a neighbor or a family friend and feel compelled, stand up and let us recognize you. And I would like to think that everyone would stand if I asked those who are deeply moved by this topic to stand as well. And so for my closing remarks, I am going to ask if everyone will stand. That we do stand for something and sit for other things. It's important that we all stand up and be recognized and recognize that the issue of mental health and drug and alcohol addiction is a national crisis, as declared today by President Trump as a national health crisis. My closing remarks are inadequate. The truth is, I took it from a Facebook post I saw from a Navy SEAL. You may have seen it as well. But we're all Navy SEALs in this matter, and we have to begin to think like Navy SEALs to combat this issue. So on our streets in Greene County, Pennsylvania, and the world, that Navy SEAL who was giving us inspiration said, "One person can change the world by giving people hope." So if you want to change the world, start each day with a task completed. He used making your bed as the first one. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and you will often fail. But if you do take some risks and step up when times are toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If we do these simple things, tomorrow will be better than today for everyone. And so, let me close the formal meeting with 3 taps of a silent gavel. And yet, on the other hand, welcome all of you to remain and talk to the professionals who are here, your families, your friends, and your new neighbors. Let's let this continue in some way to be a glad hand evening that we in Greene County do acknowledge we have a problem. Thank you all.